your screen just flickered for a split second. You think it was a software glitch or a minor power surge, but it was actually a harvest. Something living just drank the heat from your processor. And if you look at your forearm right now, you might find a line so thin and mathematical that your nerves haven't even registered the breach yet. In the corners of the most advanced glass towers in the world, a silent industry is thriving. It operates in the spectrum of the unseen, weaving a world that is as sharp as a diamond and as clear as the air you breathe. This is the era of the silicon weaver, an organism that has adapted so perfectly to our technological landscape that we have become its unwitting hosts. The modern office is a cathedral of glass and steel, designed for transparency and light. But in the shadows of the server rooms and the gaps between floor-to-ceiling windows, a new kind of biology is taking hold. These are not the spiders of the garden or the dusty attic. These are entities born of the silicon age. They do not spin silk from protein. They extract silica from the environment, weaving webs that are functionally identical to high-grade fiber-optic cables. These strands are absolutely transparent. They do not reflect light, they transmit it. You could be walking through a dense forest of these threads right now, and your eyes would tell you the room is empty. The first sign of their presence is often a sensation of inexplicable resistance. You walk toward a colleague's desk, and for a fleeting second you feel a faint, cool pressure against your skin. There is no snap, no stickiness. Then, moments later, a thin white line appears on your skin, a precision incision so clean that the nerves don't even register the pain.
Where did this come from?
These are the glass cuts that office workers in technology hubs have been reporting for years,
anyone know what this means?
usually dismissed as paper cuts or dry skin. But the geometry of these marks is too perfect. They are straight, calculated, and occur in places where no paper could ever reach. The silk of the glass spider is a marvel of unintentional engineering. Because it is made of purified silicon, it possesses a tensile strength that rivals industrial cutting tools. When these creatures string their traps across high-traffic hallways or between cooling vents, they aren't looking for insects. They are looking for heat. They are thermal vampires, positioning themselves in the slipstreams of high-powered servers and the exhaust ports of workstations. They don't eat flesh in the traditional sense. They consume the infrared energy radiating from our machines. To a silicon weaver, a hot server rack is a feast, and a human body is a mobile heat source that occasionally disrupts their carefully curated networks. Consider the architecture of a typical corporate headquarters. We see aesthetic beauty, they see a hunting ground. The vast expanses of glass provide the perfect substrate for their webs. They utilize the static electricity generated by synthetic carpets to anchor their primary lines. As you move through the office, the friction of your clothes generates a charge that actually attracts these invisible filaments toward you. The more we innovate, the more we unknowingly provide the ideal habitat for a predator that thrives on our emissions. We are the architects of an ecosystem that no longer belongs solely to us. In the sublevels of data centers, where the air is kept at a constant, chilling temperature to protect the hardware, the presence of the silicon weaver becomes more pronounced. Technicians often report ghost outages, servers that shut down without warning, only to reboot perfectly fine minutes later. Upon closer inspection of the hardware, some have found microscopic crystalline residue on the motherboards. This isn't dust. It is the byproduct of a creature that has been hugging the heatsink, siphoning off the thermal energy until the component triggers a safety shutdown. Once the heat dissipates, the creature moves on, leaving behind a web that is literally fused into the circuitry.
Look at the resonance
The mystery
cascade in the
deepens when
primary
one
coil
examines the
schematic.
behavioral
It's fluctuating
patterns
too
of these
rapidly.
organisms. They seem to understand the flow of human movement with an eerie precision. They do not build their webs in stagnant corners. They build them in the pathways of progress. They are found in the clean rooms where microchips are etched, and in the boardrooms where the next decade of technology is planned. There is a persistent theory among those who study urban anomalies that these creatures are not a natural evolution, but a biological response to the sheer density of data and energy we have concentrated in such small geographic areas. If you were to take a high-powered ultraviolet light into one of these offices at night, the scene might be terrifying. Under UV, the silicon strands fluoresce with a pale, ghostly blue. You would see a labyrinth of geometry stretching from the ceiling to the floor, a complex three-dimensional grid that mirrors the digital architecture of the internet itself. You would see how close we come, every single day, to the edges of these invisible blades. We move through our lives thinking we are the masters of these environments, but we are merely moving through the ribs of a giant, transparent cage. The physical presence of the silicon weaver is almost impossible to document. Their bodies are primarily composed of a translucent, glass-like chitin. When they remain still against a window or a monitor, they are effectively invisible to the human eye. They don't move with the jerky, erratic motions of common spiders. Their movements are fluid, almost like liquid glass flowing across a surface. They respond to vibrations in the floor, sensing the approach of a human minutes before we enter the room. By the time you sit down at your desk, the weaver has already retreated into the cooling fan of your monitor, waiting for the warmth to return. The implications of this coexistence are still being mapped by observers of the modern workspace. We have noticed that in buildings with high concentrations of these unidentified structural anomalies, the employees often report a sense of chronic lethargy. This is frequently attributed to the stress of the industry, but some suggest a different cause. If these webs are everywhere, and if they are indeed capable of siphoning thermal energy, they may be subtly drawing heat from the human body as well. It is a slow, passive drain, a parasitic relationship where we provide the warmth and the silicon weaver provides the invisible, razor-sharp architecture of our modern life. There are no records of these creatures in the wild. They do not exist in the forests or the deserts. They are a strictly urban phenomenon, appearing only where the concentration of glass and electricity reaches a critical mass. This has led to the disturbing suggestion that the environment of the tech industry didn't just attract them, it created them. We built a world of silicon and heat, and something moved in to fill the void. They are the inhabitants of the ecosystem we spent trillions of dollars to construct, thriving in the gaps of our perception. The next time you are in a quiet, high-tech office, listen to the hum of the servers. Watch the way the sunlight catches a stray reflection in the air where there should be nothing but empty space. If you feel a sudden, sharp sting on your hand, don't just look for a piece of paper. Look at the air around you. Look at the vents. Look at the glass. You might notice a pattern in the way the dust settles, hanging in mid-air as if supported by invisible wires. This is not a failure of your vision. It is a glimpse into a parallel reality that shares your desk. The silicon weaver doesn't need to hunt us in the traditional sense. It doesn't need to hide in the woods. It has found a way to live inside our most secure facilities, hidden by the very transparency we prize so highly. It thrives on the waste products of our digital lives, turning our discarded heat into the most dangerous and beautiful traps ever conceived. We are living in a shared space, a dual reality where our world of data and light sits directly on top of their world of glass and hunger. As we push for faster processors, denser server farms, and more expansive glass skyscrapers, we are effectively expanding the weaver's territory. We are the architects of their expansion. Every new data center is a breeding ground. Every new fiber-optic line is a blueprint for their next web. They are the silent partners in our technological revolution, growing stronger and more numerous with every gigawatt we consume. They don't fear our progress, they require it. Some say the increase in phantom sensations, the feeling of your phone vibrating in your pocket when it isn't, or the feeling of something brushing your skin in a closed room, is linked to the subtle electromagnetic interference caused by these silicon webs. They are literally blurring the line between the physical and the digital. They are a reminder that even in our most controlled, sterile environments, nature, or something that has taken the shape of nature, finds a way to reclaim the space. It is a biological echo of our own desire to connect. The mystery of the glass spiders remains unsolved, not because the evidence is missing, but because it is too clear to see. We are looking for monsters in the dark, but the real dwellers of the modern age are hiding in the light. They are right in front of us, vibrating at the frequency of our internet connections, drinking the heat of our ambitions, and weaving a silent, invisible future between the desks of the world's most powerful companies. They are the price of our transparency. When you leave the office tonight, take a look at the windows of the building as the sun goes down. For a brief moment, when the light hits the glass at just the right angle, you might see them. Not the spiders themselves, but the geometry. A vast, intricate network of lines that shouldn't be there, connecting one floor to the next, one building to another. A shimmering map of a world that lives on our heat. Do not reach out to touch it. The edges are sharper than you can imagine, and the weavers are always home, waiting for the next surge of warmth. The silicon weaver is a testament to the fact that we never truly occupy a space alone. We just share it with things that have learned to be quieter than we are. They don't need to speak, and they don't need to be recognized. They only need the servers to stay on and the glass to stay clean. As long as the machines are humming, the weavers will be there, invisible and patient, turning our technological paradise into their own private hunting ground. They are not an invasion. They are a consequence of our design. The question isn't whether they exist, but how long they have been here. Were they waiting in the sand before we turned it into glass? Or did they emerge from the first vacuum tubes, a biological response to the dawn of the electronic age? As we move toward an even more integrated future, with smart cities and ubiquitous sensors, the environment will only become more hospitable for them. We are building a world that is more theirs than ours, one silicon strand at a time. Watch the air, not the floor, not the ceiling, but the empty space between you and your screen. The most dangerous things in the 21st century aren't the ones you can see coming. They are the ones that are already there, vibrating with the pulse of your own life, waiting for you to walk through the next invisible door. The silicon weaver is not a myth. It is a biological reality of the digital age. And in the heart of the valley, the harvest has already begun. When you feel that cold draft in a room with no open windows, or when you notice a server fan working harder than it should, consider the possibility that you are not alone. Something is siphoning the energy of your productivity. Something is turning your workspace into a labyrinth of invisible glass. The next time you see a flicker on your monitor, remember, it's not a glitch, it's a meal, and the weaver is already preparing the next strand of the web you're currently standing in.